Good afternoon, everybody. It's a pleasure for me to be here today, and I want to say welcome to Africa. A lot of people say different things about Africa, different myths and misconceptions. Actually, some think that Africa is a country. Some people have said that before. Some even go as far as believing that Africa speaks just one language. However, there is something that is not a myth that connects Africa together. The issue is payment is a big issue in Africa. Now, why do I say this? Of course, we all know it. Many traditional banks are not innovative with their solutions. Many of them are comfortable with the legacy position they already hold. Another challenge in Africa is there is a high cost of integration for SMEs. I'm going to talk more about this because this is one area that Voguepay is quite interested in. We all know the figure. Small businesses make the bulk of people that work in Africa. Another challenge is that online payments is a big challenge. You have a small business owner somewhere, let's say in Lagos, Nigeria, or somewhere in Uganda, or somewhere in Kampala. They have things to sell. But with the growth of mobile, with the growth of social, the opportunity to connect with your customers online is actually a big opportunity that these small businesses want to leverage on. But you know what? There is a challenge for many of them. Why? Because the cost of integrating alone, it's a big sum that many of them may not be able to afford. I'm going to tell you a story. But before I tell you that story, why Voguepay? Our mission at Voguepay, the ultimate goal is to make it easy to collect, to exchange, and to move money to and from Africa. But that story actually began in Lagos, Nigeria. It started with the frustration of a man who had a small business. Like many other people in Nigeria, there are over 20 million SMEs in Nigeria alone. So he wanted to start accepting payment, but it was too difficult for him. There were other legacy players, but for example, in Nigeria, at that time, it required at least $1,000 for a small business to onboard online payment, which for a business like his, he couldn't afford. So what that means is that for a small business owner, you have an upfront cost of $1,000, even when you are not sure that customers are going to buy from you. Many people from where I come from cannot afford that. And mostly in other parts of Africa, they can't afford that as well. Another challenge, which is also obvious to us in Voguepay, is we realize that quite a number of us buy from US, from Canada, from other developed countries, or let me say Western countries. However, there are quite a number of us who provide value. There is someone I know in Lagos, Nigeria, who provides craft materials. And there are people in US, people in Canada, people in French, who like the stuff that this young man produced, but is not able to sell to them because there is no trusted payment infrastructure to make it happen. So even though he has values, he cannot get paid for those values. But if I ask you a question here, how many of you have made a payment online using PayPal, for example? Obviously, I'll see a number of hands up. But if this gathering is replaced with an ordinary small businesses anywhere in Africa, and you ask them, are you getting people to buy from you? The answer is going to be worrisome. This is the problem that Voguepay is trying to solve for this kind of audience. Another challenge we notice with small businesses as well, I will keep saying small businesses because this is a big part of Africa, and that's the problem we're really aiming at solving. Many of them do not even have websites. Many of them do not even have other kind of infrastructure that could make them to accept payment online. But does it mean that we should not allow them to do that? No. Someone has to find a solution to do that. Now, one of the things Voguepay is doing in this direction is to make it easy for small businesses to accept payment online with or without a website. So here are some of our core solutions. We make it possible for small businesses in Nigeria and in other parts of Africa to accept online transactions. That means someone in Kenya right now can start selling a product to someone in Uganda. Now, maybe I should also say this, that there is a dearth of financial inclusion in Africa. We can't even get to sell to ourselves. let alone sell to other people. So even though I'm in Nigeria, for example, and I have customers somewhere in another part of Africa, because of the differences in our currencies and other regulatory frameworks, it might be difficult for us to do business with each other. This is our success story. We have merchants, over 45,000 merchants using us in 4 continents of the world: Africa, Asia, Europe, and North America. Now, what that also means is that we have partners who want to have a touch point to Africa. And they are looking at a payment solution in Africa that they can connect with. So that's why we've been able to have some people who want to reach to Africa using Voguepay as a trusted endpoint for their business. We have tens of thousands of merchants, and we process millions of dollars on a monthly basis. Currently, we have offices in Lagos, Nigeria. We also have a new office in Uganda. We have a UK office as well. Why do we do this? I really appreciate the time. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Robert.
Thank you.
Right, any questions?
Okay.
Thanks very much. You talk about how it's a global payments and you can, pay any country in Africa, any country in the U.S. I think any of us who have dealt with money transfer services know that the regulatory side of that can be a big issue. Why have you decided to be global from, I don't know if it's from the beginning, or how has that scaled up, rather than focusing on a few corridors and building out strongly?
Yeah, thank you for the question. We understand the regulatory issues, and some of which we've discussed. It has come up several times in discussions, even from other presenters here. One of the things Voguepay has done is to work with partners across different spaces. For example, in Nigeria, there are necessary regulations that you have to comply with. Voguepay, for example, complies with the financial sector, regulatory framework which is needed. For every partner we also onboard, we ensure that they meet the required regulatory, for their part of, operations. For example, if you look at remittance or peer-to-peer transaction, so on Voguepay, it's possible because it's possible for me to send money to someone else. It obviously looks like a remittance service, isn't it? Now, but that doesn't mean Voguepay is into remittance business, because we just have to keep within the regulatory framework. Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Could you share more about your merchant acquisition strategy? How are you finding these merchants and getting them signed up?
Okay, that's an interesting question. And that's one of the reasons I kept talking about small businesses. Now, the challenge in Lagos, Nigeria, for example, is many of these people cannot, provide the cost of integrating with those I will call our competitors or other legacy players. So what Voguepay did in 2012 when we launched was to make the cost of integration zero for every merchant on our platform. Now, we do this to make it easy for them not to have any upfront cost to starting and, to receiving online payment on their platform. That has worked for us a lot. In fact, in our first few years, we enabled over 11,000 small businesses that would never have existed in Nigeria to start accepting payment and building their own businesses. Thank you.
Just a very quick question, because we were judging this payment and transfers category, and there was quite a few solutions and companies doing exactly what you are doing, especially in this region. So what makes you special? What really differentiates you from other companies? And do you have some specific innovation, or how you deal with clients, and also maybe your focus is only outside Nigeria? You mentioned that you're on 4 continents, but I wonder if it's mostly Nigerian diaspora, or your focus is on Nigerian merchants?
Okay, thank you for that question. One of our key strengths is customer service. Judging by what we have seen in the market space, we know some other people have set up shops, trying to do similar things to what we're doing. But we realized over time that it takes a dedicated team to actually provide the kind of trust and security, framework for financial transactions. Now, in Nigeria, for example, I was reading the report, the NIBBS report. That's Nigeria Interbank Settlement report. They provide that quarterly. And one of the things they shared in a recent report was that the total number of successful fraud transactions just reduced to 50%. So it used to be higher, but it reduced to 50%. Now, in the same period of time, Voguepay recorded less than 1% successful fraud transaction on the platform. So we take security very seriously. In terms of security, we are also champion collaboration among different partners. We've had an incident on our platform where we have fraudsters, across, using cards from different parts of the world, just trying to eat the card holders that they wanted to exploit. Now, because of our security algorithm, some in-house geolocation and the rest, my CTO is in the house, so if there is need for more explanation on that, it can come on board. But what I want to emphasize is that security, we take it very seriously in Voguepay. And that's why our figures is way lesser than the industry standard in terms of fraud.